an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Season 2, Episode 4. When will Josh and his friend leave me alone? In this episode, Rebecca goes a little too far trying to leave the past behind and winds up leaving most of her home and possessions behind in a fire. Also, Heather is Miss Douche. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everybody. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Tia for commissioning this episode. Hi, Tia, if you're listening. Y'all, this was a bonkers episode. And I have to tell you guys, I am super duper excited about the fact that Heather is going to be a bigger part of the show. It makes a ton of sense because Greg was an unfortunate mix because what Rebecca needs is somebody who is willing to tell her the truth about her behavior, who is willing to be a little bit snarky and hard on her. But she can't get that from somebody who's also interested romantically in her the same way. And she can't see it objectively coming from someone that she is romantically interested in. So I appreciate that Heather is here to fill that void, first of all, that Greg has left by leaving the show. Well, leaving for now. I don't really believe that he's gone, but we'll see. And I also really love Rebecca getting closer to a female character. And it's not just a female character. It is a character who is slightly younger than her. And I think Heather's younger than her. But is at least closer to her age than Paula so that she is not once again falling into a relationship that feels a little bit kind of maybe codependent. And that's not to say that won't be what this winds up being. And it certainly looks for a moment like that's where it's headed with her involvement in Heather's parents' lives as well. But what Rebecca needed was to pull back from romantic stuff and focus on being a person. And I really think that Heather is the exact recipe that we need. She is what the doctor ordered. And also, Heather isn't somebody who is always in relationships herself. So I feel like she is a good model for Rebecca to look to in terms of having a satisfying life while being single and not just being I accept that I am single in that sort of resigned way, but I'm single and it's great. I can do what I want. I mean, it's one of those things that it's really hard for me to speak on because, to be perfectly honest, I am not somebody who has been single often in my life. That is probably, it says something about me that is true. And it's not something that I've ever planned. It's never been I'm so tired of being single, I'm going to jump into a relationship right away. It's more been I have kind of emotionally detached from a relationship that I am in and have started to think and behave as if I am already single. And then I meet somebody while I have not left the previous relationship and jump into something new right away with barely a break between it all, which is not great. And that is something that I have been sort of looking at over the past few years, at the fact that I tend to only take care of myself and do well for myself when I am in the beginning stages of a new relationship and I feel free to do so because I don't feel like I need to yet orbit myself around the new person in my life. And then as the relationship gets more serious, I begin more and more to put aside what I know is good for me in favor of what will make the other person comfortable. And that is what I'm trying to learn later in life, is how to treat myself the way that I do when I am single or in the very beginnings of a relationship all the time, and not have that only be something that's like a phenomenon when I am not serious and living with somebody. So we all have our shit to get through, is my point. And Rebecca, I feel like pairing up with Heather is best case scenario for learning to deal with loneliness in a productive way. Because, and not to say Heather's lonely, I'm saying Rebecca's lonely. You know, we saw her at the start of the episode, the very first episode, and she's sitting in this like empty apartment. And I say empty, like there was no art on the walls. There was no impression that she had put her mark on the place that she lived. It was her occupying a space that she slept in. And that was sort of it. There was no ownership of it. It felt very much like this is a temporary thing. And I was excited in the place that she just burned down to feel like she has gotten to a point where she is beginning to put down roots a little bit more. She had painted the walls in some places, you know, put up a mural. She was doing a little bit more to make it her own space. And I felt like that was a really good sign. But that's the danger, is when you begin to really make something yours, that makes the memories associated with each thing all the more powerful. Like it just the association between your space and what happened in that space, it can't help but be stronger if there's a very distinct look and feel to the space while it's all occurring. That, you know, it's like, it makes me think of like scent. You walk into a place that's got the smell of something that your grandmother used to bake, and it's just, you're immediately there. You're immediately 10 years old again. It's Christmas all of a sudden. And that can happen when you walk into a room. I think a lot of people who have grown up and moved out, if you walk back into, if your parents still live in the house you grew up in, and you walk back into your old bedroom, even if it's been 10 years, and even if some things are different, you walk back in there and you're like, oh my God, you just feel suddenly like you're a teenager again. And it can be really strange. So her having to leave this whole place behind, I think it will be good for her to set up a space that maybe it feels more distinctly her, outside of anybody else's influence except perhaps Heather's. This all remain to be seen. We don't know what it's going to be like for the two of them living together. They're obviously going to have really different priorities and different like ways of living. They're going to have different aesthetics. Who knows how this is going to go? But I think it'll be really good for her. And I think it's important to have lived in a place where you get to make your own space before you move in with somebody, so that you know what that's like. I was lucky enough to live alone. I lived with a roommate, but I had I had two rooms when I lived with that roommate that were linked. So I basically had my own living room and bedroom. Then I got my own actual apartment. So I have had that time by myself with my own whole and being responsible for everything on my own. And it was tough. It was really tough. But also, it was great to be able to do whatever I felt like in the space that I had, and not have, like, it was not about making it welcoming for dudes coming over. It was not about worrying about that at all. And I didn't have to hide shit. You know, she's got a whole closet full of Josh stuff that she has to hide every time he comes over and winds up burning. Anyway, I'm sorry, I've talked for 10 minutes, but I'm super, super, super excited about this. So I just wanted to get that out there right away. So, okay, let's start this episode. We have the opening where she has finally caught Greg at the airport. And it's like one of those like rom-com moments of, oh, I'm running to the airport to catch you, to stop you from leaving. But there was no doubt in my mind that they weren't going to go the rom-com way with it. I didn't know if Greg would end up getting on the plane, but if he did or not, I did not think he was going home with Rebecca. it just she might have been able to convince him that she would like give him space and he would be able to continue with his sobriety on his own, unimpeded. But it never even occurred to me that like her going to speak to him was going to convince him to restart things with her. And this results in this amazing song, It Was a Shit Show, where he describes their fucked up relationship. And it really is so easy, even for me as a viewer, to think about the times that they had together that were pretty good. There are a few moments where I'm like, was it really that bad? And then I remember some instances here and there and I'm like, ooh, yeah, it really was though. And if I can do that as an outsider who is supposed to be a little bit more objective, I am 1,000% sure that Rebecca's doing that same shit and trying to be like, well, it wasn't that bad, was it? And so at first what he's saying makes it seem really like harsh, and she gets a little bit more defensive about it. But yeah, it's a pretty fun little, like, he said the thing we had was not just bad. It was a shit show, and it bleeps him out. And she says, come on, it wasn't exactly and he interrupts and says, shh, let me finish. And it's pretty great. It's all about, we can't fix it. This is how we are together. At the same time, I don't regret this. And I think that's really beautiful. That's one of those things that gets me all choked up. And Erica says, it was a shit show is probably the main reason I have weird sex dreams about Santino Fontana / Greg. I read somewhere that the network gave them 2 bleeps for the season, and of course they used them on this song. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so those of you who have seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, that is what that movie is about, is like going through terrible pain and grief, but ultimately deciding, you know what, I don't want to, if I could choose to not go through it again, I would not choose that. I wouldn't choose to avoid it. It was worth it anyway. And there's this thing that Owen talked to me about the other day. Owen is so sweet because what affects him really deeply and emotionally will take me really off guard sometimes. There's stuff that I think is really intense, and he will kind of be like, yeah, wow, and not really seem to be moved by it. And then there are things that I'm kind of like, yeah, wow. And he's like tearing up talking to me about it. And there's some like comic book in which this guy he has this fiance, and she gets really ill and goes through this kind of wasting illness and finally dies. And he is given the option of having all the memories of her taken away so that he can get over his terrible grief. And he chooses not to do that. He chooses not to forget, even though going through it has been absolute hell for him. And Owen was telling me about this and just getting really, really choked up. And that's sort of what Greg is saying here. That, like, yeah, we can't fix this. There's no going back, undoing, as he says, that we can't unscrew each other's friends. There are times where something's too broken to be fixed. But that doesn't mean that I regret this all, that I wish that it never happened. It's, it is what it is, and we are who we are, and things went the way they went. And hopefully we can both learn to be better, and just grow up a little bit. And that's really the most we can all hope for going through this shit. So yeah, he's in the middle of singing his last line, and I loved how this went. He says something about how they should get a hotel room and have lots of sex, but then afterwards, what is going to happen? And the exact moment where you tell me to stay is exactly when I should split, though I won't forget. I won't regret. And he's got this huge, like, crescendo, this beautiful, heart-stopping, breathtaking, life-changing. And he leans in like he's going to kiss her. And then he stops singing and grabs his bag and just walks away. It's pretty good, guys. It was pretty good. And I like that Rebecca respects it. She doesn't continue to run after him. She doesn't keep arguing how it wasn't that bad. She is heartbroken for sure, but she also gets it. You know, she's like, I mean, how am I going to be able to argue with this? So that was touching, but also terrible. And we cut to her, and she's on her couch, and she says to Paula, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't anyone want me? Josh dumped me, and then Greg abandoned me. And Paula says, that is not the situation. And I'm like, you know, Paula, I get that you're trying to, like, make it better for Rebecca, but that is the situation. However, just because these two dudes who were very poor choices don't want to be with you doesn't mean nobody wants you. I'm sure that it feels like that, but, like, holy shit, could you have picked worse? You chase this one guy across the country who has a long-term fiance who he then moves in with, and you're, like, pursuing this dude. And then you get involved with his best friend who you have this real dysfunctional first meetup with and ignore. And girl, this is not the barometer you should be using. And I like that Paula is, like, saying that, honestly, good for him, good for Greg for getting the hell out of here. She's like, he needed to deal with his own shit, and he's going back to school. And she's kind of like, I am sort of admiring of that. And it makes sense because she is currently dealing with her own, you know, what's the word? Her own dilemma is what I want to say, because she is dealing with whether or not to do this. And this is when Rebecca says, I don't know who I am without them. And I know that's pathetic, but it's true. Who am I supposed to be now? And Paula says, honey, be yourself. And Rebecca says, what? Who? No. Ew. Who wants to be that? And I fucking love her acting in this moment, because she's been really, like, kind of lethargic and sad and just, but the instant that Paula suggests she be herself, there's this, like, snap that comes all of a sudden. And she's just like, how dare you say those words to me? Like, Paula just really offended her somehow. I found that fucking hilarious. Like, look, guys, I think I've talked about it on this show, how my therapist asked me, outside of performing, outside of, like, hosting, being, and I don't mean hosting the show. I mean hosting when people come over. Outside of everything that I do because of aesthetic, and because I'm going to be taking a photo of it, and because I know that this is going to be presented to other people, who am I when I am by myself? And I swear to God, I just had no answer. It wasn't even like, I didn't even, like, open my mouth to start to say. It was a question that took me so off guard, because all I ever did was filter who I was through the perception of how other people saw me. That when she asked me, who are you when you're alone in a room? What do you do when you are alone? And how do you feel about what you do? Is that what you want? I just was like, what? Like, it was like the words did not make sense to me. So when Rebecca says, I don't know who I am without them, I felt that. I felt it. For me, it's not relationships that does that for me necessarily. It's everybody around relationships. And, you know, it's like I find the person that I'm in the relationship with that I can be myself with mostly and allow myself to be me. And then the people that are connected to them, their friends, their family, and my friends and listeners, those are the people that I perform for all the time. But what a weird sensation to realize that, like, you do so much based on other people and what you want from them, what they want from you. It's a really weird thing. And at this point she says, Paula, you don't know what it's like to be at a crossroads and not know what to do next. And Paula just says, you're right, honey. I don't. And I'm like, Paula, the fact that you have not told her yet makes me so deeply angry. Guys, when Rebecca finds out, and she will, it's going to be ugly, I feel like. I feel like she is going to be like, I can't believe you didn't tell me. Because the end of this episode, she's still hiding it. And it's weird because like she says something when Rebecca shows up, her son like yells, I'll get it since you're in bed because you just got your abortion. And I would really think Rebecca would have heard that through the door, but evidently not. And so she has just heard that Paula is homesick and not feeling well. And it has to come out, right? At some point. Anyway, but yeah. And the fact that, like, setting aside that Paula's pregnant right now, that she is deciding what to do about law school right now. Paula is at least 10, maybe 15 years older than Rebecca. How dare Rebecca say you don't know what it's like to be at a crossroads? Bitch, how do you know she doesn't know? Are you high? This woman has a husband and 2 children. She's been at crossroadses. Get out of here. I was so disgusted. I get that Paula's being supportive and whatnot, but I did kind of want her to like snap Rebecca out of it and be like, you think you're special? You're sitting here just pitying yourself over this thing that happened. And even if she doesn't bring up her own pregnancy, this is what life is, sweetie. It's figuring out what to do when the rug gets pulled out from under you and what you thought was a guarantee that this was going to happen doesn't. And now you don't know where to turn. Rebecca, knock it off, okay? Stop it. Ugh, got me so irritated. So then we go to Paula standing in her kitchen, and she is washing dishes and trying to think to herself about what's going on. And her fucking son comes in and makes this horror of a snack where he's literally just eating mustard straight out of the container. He tells them that he's been suspended, and all her husband can say, I am very disappointed in you. And she thinks it's about the suspension, and then he says, put that on some bread. He asks her husband, if there are any stamps, and she says, I don't know. Did you buy them? And that is one of my favorite reactions, because I get so irritated when there is some shit that is like, it's a household item. It is not my responsibility, but for some reason it is being put in my lap as if I am solely responsible for it and I am the one who would know about it. And I just want to be like, bitch, why would I know? Did you do this? Well, then I guess not. You know, there have been a couple times where Owen will be like, where's my such and such? And I'm like, why would I know that? Did you bring it inside? Then I guess it's in the car. What are you even talking about? So irritated. Erica says, that's a different Brendan too, different actor than last season. Oh, is it? I didn't even realize it. Oh God, watching him eat that scoop of Grey Poupon. So horrifying. So yeah, she is just standing there like really at her wit's end, like with everything that's going on. And so disappointed in her husband, and she says something to him about it. You get suspended and you yell at him for eating naked cheese, and her husband blinks at her and says, you're in that mood, huh? You want a Chardonnay? Oh. The fact that she didn't commit homicide in that moment means that she is superhumanly patient, and he does not know how lucky he is to still be alive. Nothing is more dismissive than you having a legitimate grievance about something really specific and fucked up, and that person behaving as if you're just in a mood. You're overreacting because you XYZ. It's not really that big a deal. Here's like, And I wish that she had bit his head off, but instead she focuses much more on the fact that she's pregnant and can't have Chardonnay. And I was like, no, that's not the important part, Paula. But instead they are distracted by this whole thing. He tells her, there are options. Are you sure you want another baby? We just won't mention it to Father Bra, and he won't tell God. And he says, Scott, I'm a married mother of 2, okay? Those options are for teenagers the month after winter formal. Now, that is statistically not true. Married, not necessarily married, but women who have children already get abortions frequently. Like, that is a thing. You have a kid already? You're already broke? Yeah, you're maybe going to be a little bit more gun shy than having another one than a person for whom this is their first pregnancy. Just saying. So yeah, when she said that, I was kind of like, oh, Paula, you are really wrong about that. Like, I forgive you for thinking that, but I am a little bit surprised at you. I would have thought that you knew a bit more about this. And, you know, I'm just curious. Now I'm going to look it up. How many women who get abortions already have kids? Demographics. Let's see. 24% of U.S. women will have an abortion by age 45. 59% of women obtaining abortions are mothers. Ta-da! So yeah, this is, she is incorrect and dismisses it as if that is sort of an immature decision to make. And I'm just like, that is so untrue. That is a very difficult and very mature decision to make, to know that you don't want to do this. I mean, imagine her raising a child and that child eventually finding out that she had the chance to go back to law school and had to shelve it because you were conceived. And maybe that explains some resentment that comes off her in your direction that you've never really been able to explain. Like, yeah, maybe not bringing a kid into a situation where they are unwanted, where their existence caused you to burst into tears of frustration and sadness. Maybe that's a smart thing to do. Just saying. But yeah, he tells her that she needs to talk to Rebecca, and she says, Rebecca is the last person I will tell. When I let her know I'm not going to law school because I'm having this baby, she's not going to understand. And he says, she's your best friend. And she says, I don't want to burden her. She's recovering from not 1, but 2 breakups. So, and I'm just like, oh God, I hate this. This makes me so sad. Paula just feels so alone. She has this friend, but she's so the mother in the friendship that it doesn't go 2 ways. And I really want this to stop. And I hope so much that Rebecca realizes what's going on here and steps up a little bit more. I hope that she starts to sense how much she's been taking for granted. And maybe Heather will be helpful in pointing this out to her. So then we cut to Rebecca cleaning her kitchen, talking about how she's just going to move on. And all of a sudden, she turns around and hears Greg. And she says, I knew you wouldn't leave me. I knew you'd come back. And he says, of course I did. I could never leave you. And then here's Josh. We'd never leave you, Rebecca. Never. And she realizes that these are like memory ghosts. I think it's Greg who comes up with poltergeist, which is pretty fucking good. So they then, oh my God. Oh shit. Erica is right. Pretty sure that's exactly how Rebecca was born. Naomi's always said she threw out her career when she got pregnant. Exactly. Like, yeah, you feel like you're a burden. You feel like you're something that like interrupted the actual life they were living and that they resent you. I mean, ew. So poltergeists, memory spirits who haunt their exes. And the two of them do this fucking song about all the places that they slept with her, all over the house. This house is filled with memories of us, remember? And then they begin this fucking duet, and it's literally got a tap dance number. And there's this joke at the end where they said, now for the big finish. And she says, not on my chest, please. And then they get up on a chest of drawers. And they tap dance on it. And she's like, no, you're gonna mess it all up. And there's just this whole thing about basically coming on her tits. And there's a butt akin to the one that was on stage when Lizzo performed that they like sit on and lean over the whole thing. I mean, honestly, it's pretty amazing. I loved it. It was really funny. It was one of those, like, it was one of those that I'm like, oh, this is so immature and it's so, like, so goofy and silly, but it's fine. I don't care. It's like, it totally works for me because that feels like in this moment, this is kind of what happens in your head, is that you circulate around stupid shit, you know, when you're in the middle of a, Erica says, also, it took me 3 years of knowing this song to realize, Natasha, it's a tap song. Oh, Erica, they tapped her. I get it. Fuck. Oh, I hate these people. Get out of my life. Yeah, it's fun to see Barkeep. What's on tap? It's me and my ass. Ooh, sounds refreshing. And then they high five above her head. It is really, this is some good stuff. So then we cut to her and she is burning a bunch of shit that they gave her or that reminds her of them in her kitchen sink. This is one of those things that, like, apparently, you know, it's a trope that people burn stuff. I've done this. I have absolutely done this. And I, when I did this, was smart enough to do it in my backyard in a fire pit. I was not about to fucking do it in my kitchen sink. As a result, we cut to her showing up at Heather's front door. And she's wrapped in like a safety blanket. And Heather is like, wait, what? It was you? You lit the fire? Are you serious? Thankfully, it was contained to apparently her kitchen because we see her in the living room later. And the living room looks pretty much fine. But I was a little bit concerned about how much damage she was going to have done to other people's stuff as well. It turns out it's okay. Heather says, you could have burned down the whole complex. Hello. I was going to run out and see it, but then I was tired. And so Rebecca's like, I'm just going to sleep on the couch. Is that cool? And then all of a sudden, out come Heather's parents. And this dude, this big black guy with the beard, is very familiar. I know him from other stuff, but I could not place him. And her mother, I was like, it again took me a second. I was not ever able to place. I remembered from Desperate Housewives. She plays one of the neighbors, like this really in people's business old lady who winds up getting bumped off at some point. And I know she's been in other stuff, but that was like the main thing that I was like, how do I know her? And I was like, oh yeah. So they are weirdly charmed by Rebecca because she gives good parent and agree to let her stay. At one point he says something about making pancakes and she's like, oh yeah, I am really hungry. That sounds great. And he's like, I thought I kind of meant tomorrow, but you know, that's fine too. So why don't I go and do this? And it was really like a weird moment of Heather kind of wanting her parents to not like Rebecca or at least be like less compassionate, but also not really holding it against Rebecca or being surprised at the way her parents are acting. And she asks on Rebecca's behalf, can she crash on the sofa? They say, of course, we'll get you a blanket. And she winds up staying with them for like a little while. And it turns out that it's 2 a.m., which, like, man, the fact that they are all doing this for her. Yeah. Rebecca says to Heather, your parents are so nice. And Heather has a weird, like, when she says, yeah, I was like, what's that about? And then we find out later that she feels her parents reward failure. And that is, I think, what's behind her reaction there. It's just like, yeah, they're really nice. They're so nice. They're too nice. It's an issue. And I find that very interesting. I have not been, this is not my parents. Like, my mother was a little bit easier on me than my dad. I won't say that she rewarded failure. I would never say that. But I will say that she was much more forgiving of failure and willing to be like, okay, that didn't work out, but I'm sure something else will, pretty much immediately. My dad was much less so. And the idea of parents that are this easygoing and this like eager to help all the time and to be there for you is just a weird thing to me. And I've met parents like this. My ex-husband's parents were like this, but sometimes it's like, it backfires. I think that's part of why my ex-husband was like incapable of caring for himself. So I really wonder what it's going to be like to live with Heather, because she has not been on her own and her parents are apparently, get it, so there for her that I wonder, does she know how to do half this shit by herself either? There's no real reason to think she can, but also she's not stupid. That doesn't really have a lot to do with intelligence. It has to do with motivation. And she doesn't seem to be motivated. So I guess we'll see. So yeah, we cut the next morning. Rebecca goes to work. Guys, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. It turns out Rebecca's 911 call got put on the internet. It's bad. 911, what's your emergency? And somebody in her complex took a photo of her wrapped in her emergency blanket. Well, I was in a love triangle with two best friends named Josh and Greg, and they both rejected me. So I tried to light a fire and burn all their stuff, and it's so smoky in here, and I'm so sad. Hold on, I have to poo. Ma'am, is there a fire in your house? Don't go into your bathroom. Okay, I'll poo outside. What's your name, ma'am? My name is Rebecca Nora Bunch from West Covina. I'm in the backyard and I got poo on my shoes. Hurry. My God. I can't handle it, guys. I can't handle it. Oh. And it turns out Josh is doing like an internet cleanse, so he hasn't seen it when she runs into him on the street. But honestly, I don't, like, he's gonna hear it, right? Somebody's gonna tell him about it at least. I mean, there's no way Hector doesn't find this and be like, oh my God, dude, did you hear it? Like, it's gonna happen. And I am just already so embarrassed for her. So when she comes into work, everybody's already listened to this and they're staring at her. She comes in this fucking outfit because she's wearing Heather's mom's clothes, looking like a goddamned wreck. And they come up to her and like, Daryl is immediately like, you must be so humiliated. Are you okay? And she doesn't even know what they're talking about because she hasn't seen this video. And I just, this is such a nightmare. Not only this happening to you, but everybody else knowing about it before you know about it. Like, no, worst case scenario. So yeah, she is watching it in her office, and Paula is like trying to be like, yeah, it's gonna blow over in no time. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, I mean, it will blow over in terms of it being shared by everybody in the world, maybe, but blow over in terms of your personal life, I don't know about that. So this is just, guys, Paula hugging her and trying to comfort her when she looks like she crawled out of a drain. Oh, God. I just want Paula to tell her so bad what's going on with her. And I get it. With this added on top of everything, I really get why Paula is like, okay, now I really can't tell her because her house is burned down. Well, not burned down, but not inhabitable. And she has been publicly humiliated on a scale that I am just not ready for. So sure, I can't tell her right now about this. But man, I just wanted her so bad. And Rebecca can tell something's off. She says, tell me, I want to be a good friend. I want to be a good listener. So just tell me. And she's mid-sentence and she just bursts into tears. Yeah, so they go to this meeting and it turns out they are trying to rebrand their douche company. And this woman who is in charge of this effort is she's got a bit of bitterness about the way clearly that she is seen by the world, that her company is seen, and new headquarters, new image, new us. We are starting over. Our name and image, our liability. We get that. People sometimes laugh. They childishly giggle at us. Let alone all the anti-douching research funded by Big Vagina. Oh, God. And she says, but when we are done, nobody will laugh at me. I mean, us anymore. And you can see this just fucking resonating like a struck bell in Rebecca's head. So I'm like, oh, what does this mean? And I'm thinking that this is going to inspire Rebecca to do her own thing. It does, but not in the way that I suspected. Rebecca chases after this woman and asks, how do you rebrand? And she says it starts with a new marketing push. We're launching a new Miss Douche logo. Instead of an illustration, she'll be a real woman. And she says that they are currently looking for her. They have this viral campaign and contestants will send in their photos on Instagram and the 5 with the most likes will be entered into the final sort of pageant. And then we will pick the winner. And it's really just one of the worst ideas I've ever heard. I would really like to know if it worked for them, because there are times where marketing ideas that I think sound like utter horseshit go incredibly well. I am not somebody who has their finger on the pulse of what the world wants by any means. So this, for all I know, could actually pay off for them. But in the moment, I'm just like, this doesn't sound good or right. No, I don't like it. So Rebecca tells Paula at this point, because she is going to be so distracted with this other thing, she comes up to her. She says, can you do all the research for the permitting for Trina's case? I need you to pull blueprints, file motions, set hearings. And Paula interrupts and says, I can't do those things. I'm not a lawyer. And Rebecca says, you basically are. And you're the only person I would trust to take this over, because I have to recuse myself. I have a conflict of interest. I am going to become a douche. And I'm like, what? She's going to compete to be Miss Douche. And I was like, I cannot think of a worse way to rebrand yourself after previously being humiliated on YouTube for pooping in your own backyard and getting it on your shoes in the middle of a 911 call because you were burning things that you are bitter about from your love triangle. Becoming Miss Douche, not a great solution, sweetie. I don't like it. Bad idea. But there we go. So we cut to Scott attempting to make dinner and take on some domestic duties while Paula is working on the case. And guys, I have to say, I appreciate Scott's effort here. It's hard to watch. He's not doing great. It's a mess in there. And we'll see if he actually cleans up his own mess. I hope he does. But you've got to go through these terrible meals. You've got to do it in order to learn to do it properly. And this is one of those things that I talk about this all the time, how uneven domestic labor is. And it is. But what's one of the most infuriating things is how men will say that they don't cook because they're not good at it. And they say this with this sort of assurance that their girlfriend or wife just happens to be better at cooking than them, rather than they were expected to be good at cooking and learned. We aren't born knowing stuff. We are socialized to be expected to do things. And women are socialized to be the cook. And so we tend to be better at it because society expects it from us, as do men in relationships. But it never seems to occur to these men that they can learn to cook. Because why would they? There's already somebody who's much better at it. Why do I need to learn to do it? Sometimes things happen and they can't do it. And the fact that you expect her to cook every meal is insane and wrong. And you should not be okay with that. And I shared something on my own Facebook the other day about how common it is. Something like 80% of men, when their wife or girlfriend has an illness that causes them to something that's chronic or something that is like cancer where they're going through treatments and their functionality goes down. Men are 80% more likely to leave than women. They will just leave a woman who's sick rather than stay with her and take care of her and support her. Women nearly always stay. Men nearly always leave. And that is because men expect to be taken care of. And when the roles are unexpectedly reversed, they cannot handle that. And they leave the relationship entirely to find a different woman to take care of them. That's their priority. It's not the person. It's being cared for. That's their priority. And it's, unfortunately, all the statistics bear this out. The fact that Scott is over here trying to prove that she can go to law school by attempting to fucking cook and make it clear to her, I really appreciate it. And she says that she appreciates it too. And she's like, I get what you're trying to show me, that our lives can still work. And he's like, see, I'm crushing it. And he holds up this freaky looking, like burned bacon, raw piece of chicken. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. And I love Paula's reaction to it. But yeah, this whole thing is just, he really is attempting it, but it's not going to work. Yeah. He's yelling for Tommy. Then he realizes that he forgot to pick up Tommy. You know, good. He needs to learn how much she does all the time and how many things she juggles. And the fact that this has not been an even distribution of labor. I think this is a good thing. So anyway, this whole thing, it just results in Paula being because he tries to say, I need practice, but I will get there eventually. And she's like, no, I'm just going to tell them that I can't go. Even on our best day, we are totally overwhelmed. We can't add a baby to this. We can't add law school to this. Like, both? Are you kidding me? And he is trying to argue with her that she has the best name for a lawyer. And she tries to, again, say, stop it. We've made a decision and we need to stop talking about it. But you can see how fucking sad Scott is. And I just loved him for this. He is heartbroken. He looks like he might cry on her behalf when she says this. She's trying so hard to pretend that it's a done deal and she's fine with it. And he knows better. And he knows he can't really argue with her because it's her decision. but he wants the best for her so much, and he knows what her potential is. And Scott, thank you, sweetie. I appreciate you. I really, really do. This is what support looks like. So then we go to Rebecca talking about trying to be Miss Douche and them figuring out a whole new look and vibe for her. And we get this fucking song that has to be the worst song of this entire show. Am I wrong? It's a makeover. It's a makey makeover. It's a makey, lakey, wakey, fakey, bakey, cakey, rakey, nakey. Oh my God, you guys. Worst ever. Hands down. Oh my God. I hate it so much. So we have the elevator doors open and Rebecca walks out and she's wearing this like 1970s looking zip up denim jumpsuit. She's like bleached her hair and put in blonde extensions. She has what looks like a stick-on tattoo on one arm and got a fake tan. And overall, I mean, it's not even that the look is so bad. Honestly, I kind of dig it, to be perfectly honest. It's just so not her. That's really what it is that it's like she could be somebody that if she showed up looking like this, I would, and I didn't know her, I'd be like, oh, that's a cute look. I like that jumpsuit. That's a bold choice, and I'd be into it. But because we know who she really is and how she really dresses and all of this, it's just really, really weird and sad because she's going through this breakup and that's what's motivated this, It's just, I feel really bad for her in this. So she has posted her photo and she's going way up in likes. She's spent $5,000 on bots in order to get into the top 5, as it turns out. And Paula has to sit here and be like, girl, look, I get what you're going through. I understand why you're doing this. And she starts to try and lecture her. But Rebecca says the entire world has to see how effortlessly awesome I am. It only takes me 2 hours to achieve this look. I mean, 4 if I haven't had coffee. Oh, guys, y'all don't even know the time. I remember when I was in high school and I wanted to straighten my hair every day because I did not appreciate my hair. And I began to realize the women who wore it that way every day, who did have hair like mine, just how much time they were taking every day to do it. And that was really the thing. I was just like, I'm not willing to do that. And I was willing to put in a ton of effort into my appearance, but I drew the line at like waking up 2 hours early just to blow dry and straighten my hair. I couldn't do it. Just no. And what she's doing, I mean, yeah, that's hours for sure. So yeah, she says that this isn't just about Josh and Greg. It's about feeling good about myself. And that's the thing, is that it is about that. That is like, this isn't just about them. It is about her wanting everybody to forget who she was before. It's certainly motivated by outside stuff, but also it is just about how she isn't aware of who she is at all. She doesn't really know. So when she says, I feel like I found the authentic me, she very well might actually feel that way because she doesn't know who she is. So yeah, you just try shit out because you're just like, I guess, Erica says they wanted to keep Rebecca blonde for a while, but co-creator Aline Brosh McKenna couldn't take Rachel seriously as a blonde. I mean, it's not a great look for her. With the tan, I feel like it helps, but otherwise I feel like it would wash her out completely. It would be really bad. I did do this one time when I was working in Philadelphia. I took several days off and I got a haircut and a keratin treatment, which left it like really pretty straight. I got a spray tan. I got fake eyelash extensions, and I got something else done. I can't remember what it was. I think I got mani-pedi, and I got like shapewear to wear under my clothes that I hadn't had before. And I remember when I showed back up, everybody was like, holy shit, you look amazing. And I felt amazing. Like, there is something to be said for makeovers. They help. But unless you're going to maintain that forever, you go back to feeling like not great, because you're not going to be pouring that kind of money into your appearance all the time. For most of us, these kinds of makeovers are a special thing because we aren't willing to do that every day, you know? So we go, we have her running into Josh, and man, it is an awkward, like, he walks right by her, does not recognize her. And when she tries to like be casual and act like, oh, this is just me and I look great, don't I? And it's very clear that he sees that she's really going through some stuff and can tell that this is like not a good thing. I feel so bad for her, guys. She's trying so hard, and it's just really transparent what's happening here. And yeah, just this, he calls it a funny costume. And she has to be like, this isn't a costume. This is how I dress now. This is my new look. And you see his like dawning horror. Oh, guys, it's so bad. Oh, God, I hate it. Whatever you're going through right now, it'll get better. I promise. It can't get better when it's already the best. Oh, girl. So we have the actual pageant for Miss Douche. And Rebecca gets up there and she says that she's trying so hard to be everything a modern woman should be. And they're like, but we want to know more about the real you. What drives you? And they ask her all the questions that I was asked that I also did not have an answer to. And she just is fucking on the spot. Meanwhile, so is Paula, because she goes to the lawyer, judge. She calls him Your Honor. And he corrects her on one thing that she calls him, but I think Your Honor is correct. He's a judge, right? And she's making this presentation, and he interrupts at one point and is just like, so you're not a lawyer, right? And she says, no, I have to admit that I'm not. And then he says, okay, but all of this work you did is excellent, and you definitely should be. And I think that you, with your name, you just sound like a lawyer. He says exactly what her husband said. And it is a really great moment. There are some times where the people who are closest to you being encouraging does not mean what it should, because you feel like they only see the best in you because they're your friends and they love you, and therefore they are biased and not to be trusted. But somebody coming in from the outside who does not know you at all being like, oh yeah, no, that totally fits. You should definitely do that. You're excellent at this. That can be the thing that you're suddenly like, oh, my friends weren't lying. My boyfriend who loves me wasn't lying to me. Which is like, it's a fucked up thing to think that about your friends, but you're thinking that out of love for them because you know that they care about you and they want you, like you, it's, you know, you can't help but think that. And so, yeah, this whole reaction, he says that this is better than most lawyers who appear to this board. Most of them just phone it in. I'm going to grant your petition. Well done. It's so good, you guys. If you ask me, you'd make a damn good attorney. Paula Proctor, Esquire, has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? So, we go outside the pageant, and Rebecca's like, well, I completely ruined that and fucked up. But then out comes fucking Heather. And she won. And she also won $10,000. And this means that she is moving out. And I can't. It's so perfect. I love it so much. Heather is the only woman I can think of who could be the face of Miss Douche and be perfectly fine with that and not ever let it like be weird. It makes sense. It makes complete sense. So yeah, her parents don't even know how to react because they reward failure, and they say something about how she never wins anything. And I was like, ouch, guys, that's not really like, they're obviously excited for her, but it's so like they are under expecting so much. And she decides that she and Rebecca are going to move out and live together somewhere. And this is like everything I ever wanted. And then we jump to Paula in bed, and we don't know exactly what's going on. But then we hear her son yell up from downstairs, and we find out that she had an abortion, and that is why she is in bed still recovering. And I was so happy. I was so glad. Oh, thank God. Thank God. I mean, yeah. And Rebecca comes in, and she is brunette again, and she just wants to check up on her friend, but she still doesn't actually know what's going on with her. Daryl said you called in sick. Are you okay? Yeah. Yep. I'm okay. And Rebecca's looking at her like, I know something's been up. I want to know what it is. Really. I mean it this time. And Paula says, and then stops. I had a thing. I figured it out. I'm just so happy to see you. Tell her. Please. Guys, I can't handle it. I can't. I just want Rebecca to know. So she tells her about how she's going to try and work on her insides instead of her outsides. I know Josh and I shouldn't be together, and I know that Greg's in a better place, and then stops and is like, I mean, he didn't die. Yeah, because that's definitely what that sounded like. But I just wish that I could stop thinking about him. And I think I know how. And she goes into her old apartment and says goodbye. And they're standing there. Greg is standing there. He's the one really that's standing there. I guess running into Josh sort of helped dispel that one. But she says goodbye to him, and he disappears, and she walks out. And then we have the moment at the little coffee and donut place. She's sitting with Heather, and it makes sense because they can't go back to Boba because that's where Josh and all of his friends go. So yeah, we're going to be avoiding that place for a while. And all of a sudden, Rebecca's like, wait, who is that? And they realize that is Valencia over there chowing down on a donut, which she had previously only allowed herself to go and smell. And as soon as Rebecca sees her, she starts to gather up her shit and try and like run away before Valencia can spot her. But it's too late. Valencia turns around. She's carrying a whole box of donuts. She's not wearing any makeup. And it's obvious when she sees Rebecca, she is not excited about this. And that is the end of the episode. And I can't wait. I want them to like be friends, even though I know that's not good. But I like want it, you know? I just do. It's not possible. It just isn't. Like Valencia's personality would not allow it, but oh God, I just kind of want it. Erica says, a note for next episode. I don't know if Netflix still has that weird subtitle glitch, but it happens for the first 5 minutes of the next ep. I learned though that if the subtitles don't show up, you can switch the subtitles off and they'll show up then, which is annoying. Oh, all right. Well, good to know. Thank you, ma'am. So I am going to wrap. Thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you very much again to Tia for commissioning this episode. I'm going to check right now and see what day is today. Today's the 21st. The next episode is the 24th. Oh, guys, I'm so excited. And there won't be another Voyeur episode until May 1st, which will be episode 9 that I have been commissioned to live watch. So, it's the 24th of March? Oh, God, Erica, thank you for catching that. I didn't realize it. Today's the 21st. Yeah, 24th of March. Fuck. Shit. All right. Owen's going to be so upset. Thank you guys so much. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.